Is really going to be about Republicans versus Democrats because technically that's really what midterm elections, especially ones like this, are about. And I'd like to discuss with you the differences between the two parties. Now, from my point of view, I consider myself to be a fiscal conservative, a foreign policy hawk. Socially, I am more moderate, but I'm still right of center. Um, and you'll find that most of my beliefs are more in line with the base of the Republican Party than they are the base of the Democratic Party. But let me explain to you why I hope the Republicans regain the House. It has nothing to do with my belief that Republicans are just going to do all good and Democrats are going to do all bad. But I do believe that fundamentally the direction the Democrats have moved this country in over the past 2 years of more government intervention in the economy, more government spending, a direction towards unionization, cap and trade, more and even more deficits, and even less jobs, I think that is a very dangerous course for the country to go on. And fundamentally, I believe the Democratic point of view of government solving problems is not the best point of view. I believe that we need effective, smaller government. And what I mean by that is we need a government that, yes, creates an environment in which people can uh, can prosper, but that does not mean that they should run their lives. And that's why we need effective and small government. So, but it is not my, certainly over the past decade, Republicans haven't exactly cut the size of government either. And the reason that I trust the Republicans in this election is because they are committed to repealing the Obama health care bill. They're committed to defeating cap and trade. They certainly aren't supportive of the unions. They are committed to securing the border. On government spending, on the size of government, role in government, I'm sure that the Republicans they made a lot of mistakes, but I hope that they will be an improvement over the Democrats. And I think that looking from a perspective, whether you're a small business owner, you're working hard, I think that the Democrats' policies have not been helpful to you. They have not helped this economy. They have not helped the budget at all. Uh, the Democrats' policies have been frankly reckless and they've failed. Now, some of the Republican candidates across the country are people who I believe are people of ideas, and they form a optimism that I think we could see in the American people. But there's some Republican candidates who are not proposing ideas, and certainly the Democrats are not proposing ideas. And I think that this election is really going to be more about a direction for the country to move in than it is either political party. It's going to be about, are we going to rely on the federal government to make decisions for us, or are we going to allow people to make decisions for themselves, but have a government that supports them in that decision, or government that encourages the hiring of workers versus government putting up roadblocks to hiring workers. That's really the decision that Americans are going to make this election day. And there's no doubt about it that if I focus more on the U.S. Senate races, it's pretty tough to focus on all the House races. But as far as the Senate's concerned, I've made it clear that I've supported the Republican candidate. Generally speaking, they've been the more conservative candidate, not always, but they've generally been the more conservative candidate, as was the case with, I supported Marco Rubio over Charlie Crist. I supported Trey Grayson over Rand Paul. These were just some primaries in which I supported the more conservative candidate. Now it's the general election. And, I'm not somebody who really believes that we should do everything based on a one party system, but I do believe that there's some things that have to be done, and the Democrats in Congress and the Senate and the White House have not allowed to be done. And I think that's very unfortunate. I don't think that is in the best interest of the country. With that being said, I think that in certain places, Republicans have not nominated the best people. For example, in Connecticut, I don't think Linda McMahon is a true conservative. I don't think that she is a person that is even qualified to be a United States senator. And therefore, if I lived in Connecticut, I'd actually support the Democratic candidate. If I lived in Kentucky, because of Rand Paul's extreme views about how he wants to end the war on terror, basically, he wants to join with far left Democrats in their opposition to the Bush era foreign policy, and therefore I'd support Jack Conway because he is the more conservative candidate in that state. Um, Those are two examples in which I would be supporting the Democratic candidate. Not so much because I'm enthusiastic about the Democratic candidate. Certainly, I don't think Robert Blumenthal is a good candidate in Connecticut. Jack Conway is a good candidate in Kentucky, I'll admit that. But generally speaking, I hope the Republican candidate wins. And it's for what I said because it's about a direction of the country. Okay, I'm looking forward to having a Senator Marco Rubio, a Senator Pat Toomey, hopefully, if all goes well, a Senator Carly Fiorina. I'm looking forward to having Senator Kelly Ayotte. Okay, and the list goes on and on. But the point of this is that the reason that I want the Republicans to win is not necessarily just because they're Republicans, but because they are not Democrats and not Barack Obama, not Harry Reid, not Nancy Pelosi, John Kerry, Dick Durbin, and the list goes on and on. And I think that when you look at the two parties, you have one party right now that is opposing bigger government, higher taxes, cap and trade, and unionization. The other party is embracing it. And I think that the American people have spoken out against the things that the Democrats have stood for in these past 2 years. They voted in the Democrats to change something, and they didn't like the change they got, and that's why I think the Republicans are probably going to make gains, if not winning the majority back. And on another note, I'd just like to comment on the Pledge to America. There's certain things I like about it. I'm disappointed, though, that Washington politicians in both parties have failed to do anything about entitlement reform, because until we tackle entitlement reform, I know that Representative Paul Ryan laid out a plan in his book, in a book he wrote about a year or two ago about that. But none of the Republican leadership, aside from Ryan, have really embraced Social Security reform as a way to cut the deficit. And it's not just the Democrats, the Republicans as well. Although I will admit the Republicans might have my trust and confidence more than the Democrats do on most fiscal issues, even after the Bush fiasco, simply because of the role that Democrats want the federal government to play, which I believe is overstepping its bounds. Um, Certainly, there are some Republican candidates who I question. I'm not, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Christine O'Donnell says. From what I see, that she is a decent candidate. I don't know enough about Sharon Angle to really have an opinion on her. From what I like what I see. I certainly think that Harry Reid is doing a good job lying about her, but I think that she is overall a good candidate, and I don't think she's an extremist either. And the point I'm trying to make here, folks, is vote Republican not because necessarily they're a whole lot better than Democrats, but well, maybe they are, but not because they're Republicans, just because they're not Democrats.